There are a number of people that were important to you growing up, including the Ekstroms, the family next door.
Now, there were the Ekstroms and Phil Akerson. As I mentioned before, my mother was down with tuberculosis. My grandmother would come over and stay with my mother during the day, work days, that is Monday through Friday. My dad would take care of my mother on Saturday and Sunday. There was very little time for them to spend on me, and I was very fortunate. There was a Phil Akerson who lived across the street, about 6 or 7 years older than I, and then there were the 3 Ekstrom girls next door, the youngest of which was about 6 years older than me. And they would take me swimming, they would take me out to do a lot of things that I'm sure my parents would have done for me had they been able to. Phil Akerson had a real love for airplanes. He incidentally was ultimately killed in an airplane crash during World War II over in England. But he used to take me out to an airport on Lyndale and 90th, where they had a small airport, and I would sit and watch him circle the field and do touch and goes, and dream that one day I would fly my own airplane. It was about that time that I concluded that what I wanted to do when I grew up was to become a commercial airline pilot. And I'm sure Phil was a great influence on that score. Rather interestingly, Phil had the idea that if you built a big enough kite, you could, via a kite, bring somebody up in the air. And I was going to be his first passenger. Fortunately for me, he never got the kite quite big enough to pull me up off the ground, thank God. I probably would have gotten up 30 feet in the air and then come falling down. The two important ones, of course, from my point of view, is my mother in the first instance, and my Uncle Fred, her brother, that stayed here. Her brother had a single child, and that was Helen. And my mother's maiden name was Megan, my uncle's name was Fred Megan, and my cousin's name was Helen Megan. Helen and I were about as close to being brothers and sisters as I suspect it's possible to be and not be. Helen, was like a daughter to my mother. I was like a son to my uncle. My uncle, of course, is now dead, but Helen is very much alive. We see each other quite frequently, and we have the warm, close relationship that we had as children.
Charles Lindbergh.
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, even though he certainly went on to make a lot of serious mistakes, he's still my hero.
He came to Minneapolis in
1927, and I remember sitting on the shoulders of my dad, looking through a window in one of the hangars at Old Chamberlain Airport, seeing the Spirit of St. Louis. Lindbergh was making a flight around the country promoting aviation, and there was at a time when he was spending some time in Minneapolis.
one other childhood story before we move on, the dime story.
Yeah, a valuable lesson. We were poor, as so many of us find ourselves saying. We never knew we were poor, because everybody was poor. During the Depression, which started out in about 1930, my dad only worked really a few weeks in the aggregate over the next 4 years. We never went on relief. How my dad was able to control his finances to the degree that he did is beyond me. But, you know, we never had a dime to go to the movies. Once in a great while, somebody would offer to take us to the movies. But for the most part, we didn't do any of those kinds of things. Being an only child, my parents used to try to let other kids go with me to special events. The one I'm thinking of was a plumber's picnic, which you had once a year. And I took my old friend Gordy Hall along with me, and we were in the model airplane age. I suppose we were probably 11 years old, something like that. My dad gave us each a dime to spend at the picnic. We saw a dice game and watched for a while, and man, it looked like it was easy to win money. So we each put our dime into the dice game. Gordy lost his dime on the very first roll, but I was lucky, or at least we seemed to think I was lucky, because my dimes suddenly became 20 cents, and 40 cents, and 80 cents. It seemed like it was not possible for me to lose. It was so easy. And of course we were greedy little buzzards, and you could have bought a kind of a nice kit for 20 cents, but we thought, boy, that one you can buy for 55 cents, that is really neat. Well, when I got up to 55 cents, of course, suddenly I have sight of the one that cost 80 cents. And so it goes up to about $2.60, and I'm still looking ahead at bigger and better models. And then all of a sudden, everything reversed, and in a matter of moments, the whole thing, including the original dime, was gone. And I remember Gordy and I went and sat on a bumper of my dad's automobile, or on the fender, I should say. Running board of the car. And we're crying when my dad came up, wanted to know why we were crying, and we explained the dice game. And he seemed to be sympathetic. And so I was emboldened to say, "Would you give us another dime?" And he said, no, I gave you a dime. You chose to spend it on the dice game. I'm sorry you lost. And with that, he turned around and walked away. To this day, I may invest in a bet up to $1. I don't go beyond $1. I don't like what happened when I was 11 years old.